Let's talk about Bucks, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about a 5 and
All
4
the good
start.
things. Oh, that's so funny. I was before you said that, I kept having all these little moments while we were talking before the show where you guys would say something or I'd say something, and then I'd just like launch into a song in my head based off the words that were being used. So the fact that you started the podcast like that was just serendipitous, my friend. Thank you.
I'm very happy to be here. I think this is the earliest we've ever done the show. It's 8:30 here, local West Coast time, and we're all in three different time zones in Oregon, Michigan, Wisconsin. But we're here to talk about the Bucks and their 5 and 4 start. We did a post game podcast after the first game against the 76ers. The Bucks have gone 4 and 4 since that win over the Sixers, and we just kind of want to give you guys some updates, how we feel about the team, how things are going, especially in relation to their Eastern Conference rivals, where they sit, kind of how the standings break down. The first thing that we saw after, first and foremost, how are you guys doing, Terrell? How are you doing today?
I'm good today, Anthony. Thank you for asking.
Thanks for
Hey,
being here.
this isn't a therapy session. We don't need to know how we're doing. We need to check in on the Bucks temperature. So let's get Carl Jungian on the archetypes that we know.
All right, so the last time we checked in with you guys, it was post game of Game 1. Bucks had a nice win over the Sixers. I think that was there was the weird Harden situation going on. Now he's not even on the 76ers. But the Sixers look awesome. 7-1. They've won 7 straight. Their only loss was to the Bucks on opening night. Also interesting thing that we'll get into later is that the 76ers new head coach Nick Nurse was one of the other finalists for the Bucks head coaching position. They went with Adrian Griffin. There was some details on that as to, Griffin used to work for Nick Nurse, and maybe the Bucks, because of Giannis, chose Adrian Griffin over Nick Nurse, and he dropped out of the running, maybe to get ahead of the story of the Bucks choosing his assistant over him. He ends up with the Sixers. They have the better record, but their one loss is to the Bucks. There's some panic I've seen, I guess, from the last handful of games. We've got 2 straight losses with no Damian Lillard, but let's rewind. Second game of the season, Bucks lose to the Atlanta Hawks. That was the beginning of a back-to-back. The next night, they would go on to beat the Miami Heat. So if you're talking about the top teams, Eastern Conference rivals, to me, coming into the season, I think of 4 teams. You think the Heat, who were in the Eastern, won the Eastern Conference last year, made it to the finals and lost. The Celtics, the Sixers, and the Bucks. To me, those are kind of your 4 teams coming into the season. Now, trades can be made. Other teams have gotten better. The Pacers, the Magic, the Hawks aren't awful. The Knicks don't look that good. I'm not really a surprise to me. The Cavs don't look as good as they were last year, but we're still only a handful of games in. But to me, so far, it seems like the Bucks, when they're playing somewhat of a lesser opponent, they tend to play down or less than that opponent. I think that was the case with that Hawks game. Then they came back the next night to beat the Heat, where we got to see something we didn't see in the playoffs last season, which is Giannis guarding Jimmy Butler. With Giannis on Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Butler did not even take a shot attempt. So we saw the difference of what he did to Drew Holiday in the playoff series and just abused one of the best, if not the best, perimeter defender in the league versus Giannis guarding him, where he didn't even get a shot off and looked all sorts of bothered. Anything about that back-to-back that you guys want to chip in on, where they went 1-1 over, lost to the Hawks, and then the next night beat the Heat?
No, I think most of my comments are going to be more of the kind of sweeping overall kind of statements about a lot of the games. So, yeah, I think zeroing in on that early 2-game set, there's too many variables that would maybe come into play for me if trying to critique it at this point.
Sure. So I'll roll on then, Terrell, unless you have anything.
Let's continue. I got a
Okay.
couple comments here I want to save.
All right. So as I was saying, the Bucks really seem to be playing down or less than their opponents, or as good or better than some of their top rivals so far. The next game would be against the Raptors. This is another situation where I think we saw the Bucks play much under their competition. They lost the game by 19 points. Similar to the Hawks game, it just felt like they really couldn't get anything going. I think between those two games, they really only had one good quarter. I think it was that second quarter against the Hawks, but the loss of the Raptors was pretty ugly. This was Adrian Griffin's return to Toronto, and did not go well for the Bucks. A big part of this issue was that something that we'll get into in a little bit, which is the change of the defensive scheme. Adrian Griffin's defensive scheme coming into the season, wanting a little bit more switching. You're getting Brook on the perimeter more, and just not doing that drop defense that we're used to. And I think it was after this Raptors game that there was a big conversation, supposedly on the flight, between some players and Adrian Griffin. Giannis was said to be in that conversation. My guess, just speculation, would be that Brook Lopez was as well. And a lot of that had to do with the Bucks switching back to a drop defense, where you don't see Brook Lopez, 7'1", 280-pound Brook Lopez guarding guys on the perimeter, but staying back to kind of what we saw the last 5 years, the drop defense, protecting the paint quite a bit more, defending shots, contesting shots in the paint near the basket, not getting too far away from the basket. Wing defenders kind of funneling their guy into Brook so he can contest shots there, and not seeing Brook on the perimeter as much. Which is, it's a fish out of water situation. The man was second in Defensive Player of the Year award last year, lost to Jaren Jackson Jr. And so the Bucks made that switch leading up to, I believe, the first ever NBA in-season tournament game for the Bucks, Friday night against the Knicks, which I'd like to get your thoughts on as well, in addition to switching from the Adrian Griffin's new defensive scheme and now kind of bringing in more of the drop defense, and what you guys have thought so far about in-season tournament.
I'm gonna be interested to hear you guys' take on a lot of this, kind of your perspective of Griffin so far, because with this situation, you like that he was open to the players coming to him and then being willing to take their ideas and apply them. But you also look at the situation as a whole and you say to yourself, why isn't he evaluating his talent better? Why didn't he realize coming into this situation that regardless of his preferences in regards to defense schematically, that you have Brook Lopez here? Like, you're going to want him in position to do what he's best at doing, which is being in front of the rim, protecting the rim. And if you're not playing into that scheme, like, you're being foolish, and you're being I can understand wanting to maybe take a look at something early in the season, but realistically, like, there's enough game tape on who Brook Lopez is that you know what he's good at, you know how to use him effectively. And the game after that, they make that change. Brook Lopez goes out there, and after only having 2 blocks through the first 4 games, he has 8 blocks in that one game against New York, the next game out. So it's just, and we saw now against Orlando as well, he took Brook Lopez out, and he decided to stick with the bench with the younger guys, and Griffin admitted to this after the game to the media, that he wanted to stick with the younger guys, and then it just got to a point against Orlando in this last game that the game was kind of out of hand. He didn't see the point in putting Brook Lopez back in, but it's he needs to understand that Brook Lopez gets put back out there just like any other Giannis or somebody else, because he's so important to the defense that you don't want to allow a team like the Magic, that doesn't necessarily have good shooting, to be having free reign to go to the rack the way they did against the Bucks. So it's just some of these coaching mistakes from Griffin. You want to be patient with it and understanding that he is a first-year head coach, but like, there's other issues to talk about regardless of his poor evaluation of how to use Brook for the defensive purposes on this team.
Yeah, I like what Griffin's doing with listening to the players. Some coaches, their egos are so big that they say, you know what, this is my team now. I'm going to coach it my way. You just play basketball. The fact that he's receptive to his players is, I think that's going to actually win a couple games throughout the season. But looking at the stats right now, the Bucks are letting up 119 points a game. Is that a problem? Is that a real problem that we have right now? Or are the Bucks kind of like, when they go on these road games, you know what? We're not going to play the starters a lot. we're gonna play the games that matter, the in-season tournament games, the qualifiers. It's just, is this a problem that the Bucks have on defense right now? 119 points.
Well, so they've lost the last 2 games, Pacers and Magic, and Damian Lillard didn't play either of those games. But like having that as your starting backcourt of Lillard and Beasley, you're going to give up a lot of points and you're going to give up a lot of leads. And I think scheme is definitely part of it, and they're still figuring that out exactly how they want to go. I don't think that this is the starting 5 that we see post All-Star break. Some of their best lineups have been, that starting 5, but no Beasley. So I'm talking Giannis, Brook, Middleton when he's been able to play, Lillard, and then Jay Crowder. Like the Jay Crowder in there as kind of really very similar to what we saw the championship year with PJ Tucker getting inserted for Dante DiVincenzo after the injury to the Heat in that first round. Jay Crowder, the way he's been shooting 53% from 3 going into last night's game, and kind of the revival of what we've seen of Jay Crowder's career last year. Not a good year, sat out, held out those first few months, really didn't get it going under Coach Bud. This year, I really like what I see from Jay Crowder. He was hurt. I think he pulled his groin last night and wasn't able to finish the game, which kind of led to us see some of those fun younger lineups, which we'll get to later. But that even with the Bucks loss, that was great to see. But I see MarJon Beauchamp or Jay Crowder being that 5th starter, and Beasley able to light it up off the bench and not having to take on some of these elite perimeter players. And having somebody who can do that, I think, helps Damian Lillard out quite a bit too. Like Jay Crowder can come in and help out in a lot of those situations. If they trust MarJon for a little bit, give him a little bit more leash than what they have so far. Even AJJ, man, AJJ on defense, he looks so good. He absolutely flies around. Like, I don't know if you want him to be that starter because his lack of a 3-ball with Giannis's lack of a 3-ball, but defensively, that might be your answer. And I think defensively, AJJ is going to earn himself more minutes, and I think we've seen that over the last week, which is really great. But that was my concern coming in, just with the Damian Lillard trade. Like, this team defensively is not going to be as good, especially the scheme they were running the first few weeks. Like, if Damian Lillard's going to be guarding on the perimeter, and you have to have that Brook as the guy to your rim protector, like funneling guys into Brook and keeping Dame out on the perimeter and things like that. So I think this team has not been good defensively and is giving up a lot of points. I think they'll continue to give up big runs and blow leads, but I don't think it will be as bad as it has been. When I think of January, February, later in the season, I don't think it'll be as bad as it is right now. But I think there are some changes and tweaks to rotation that we could see that could help. Beasley led the NBA in 3-pointers off the bench last year. Like, I think bringing him off the bench is totally fine. He can probably let it fly a little bit more with that group, not taking away shots from the other fellas we mentioned. I think that probably brings in a better situation if that your 5th starter is a defender first, and Jay, MarJon, or AJJ much later. Those guys fit that a little bit better. It's certainly a potential trade is in the works. I don't later, like the Bulls might blow it up. Like there's going to be other guys who become available, other maybe lengthier defenders who can guard perimeter players who maybe have a better 3-ball too. Like we'll see what happens with that. But this team is just, they're not going to be as good defensively as we have seen. Like, I do love seeing Giannis on the other team's top players, though, like what we saw him against Jimmy Butler, when we saw him against Julius Randle in the NBA in-season tournament, just creating nightmares for those guys. Like, seeing Giannis as your go-to defender against the other team's top player, that is looking very sexy right now. I do love that portion of it.
Yeah, but they can't. The Bucks, look, they're going to be really good as long as Giannis is healthy, and as long as Lillard is healthy. They're going to be good. They're going to be in that championship conversation the whole year, as long as that is so. But if Middleton doesn't become Middleton at some point this season and look healthy and contribute in a 2-way, in big minutes, then the ceiling for this team is probably going to be capped unless they make some kind of other moves, or Bobby Portis becomes a bigger part of the equation and really shows that he can carry a bigger load. Jay Crowder got a groin injury in Saturday's game. So now we're sitting here and we don't know how long he's going to be out. That could be a 4-week thing, or it could be just like 5 games. But anyways, while Crowder's out, I love the fact that Giannis is showing that willingness to be the main defensive guy. But again, Griffin needs to realize Brook Lopez is out there to, like, his importance is multifold. It's on offense as somebody who spreads the court, doesn't clog up the paint. But when you need a bucket and you can throw it to him and he'll go get you a bucket. And it's just like,
and I don't know if we've seen that yet. I don't know if we've seen Brook in the post. Like, I don't see Brook getting fed much inside whatsoever this season. Maybe on broken plays, offensive rebounds, things like that, he's getting it, but we really haven't seen much of that yet.
No, not at all. And that's my concern with Griffin early, is like, you're not seeing a whole lot of like recognition of what's good about what we got, like gratitude for the things that are. It's like he wants to try all these different things that he thinks are good, and it should be the simple stuff. It's like, you want, even when Lillard gets back, we need to see more of Lillard and Giannis playing off of each other. So, and like, to the extent that you're almost seeing both of them get big assist numbers to each other and from each other. And we just weren't seeing that early in the season. Giannis's assists were way down with Lillard playing. And it's just like, there should be a give and take there that actually takes advantage of the fact that one of them's a great deep threat and one of them's a great offensive threat down low. And then the fact that the gravity of both in that push and pull for the other team's defense allows even easier opportunities for both of them to create more free throw trips to the line. So it's just, I'm struggling to see a recognition from Griffin in a lot of situations. And that even speaks to when Giannis was ejected a couple games back. Griffin should have, as soon as he saw that the technical was called there and that it was lead, and knowing that Giannis already had a tech, Griffin should have went crazy. Griffin should have gotten kicked out right there. So we know Griffin got ejected the next game because guess what? People acknowledged right away, like, holy crap, how is this guy not sticking up for his players? There's too many times where Griffin, Coach Bud had some really strange faces on the sidelines, like epic meme level like faces, right? But Coach Griffin is over there with just like, he's like 75% of the bug eye that we get out of Bobby Portis. And it's just like this dead-eye deer in headlights stare. And it's like, dude, I get it. You want to emblemize being the Bucks head coach, but you don't have to have that deer in headlights stare all the time. So it's not leaving me with a lot of confidence in him going forward, but he's showing flexibility, and you got to be patient because it's still just like 10 games.
We're not even a month in.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So,
Kyle, to your point about the assist numbers, I think that I don't think anyone is averaging more than 4.5 assists on this team. Lillard might be 4.7 right now as your assist leader. I think when we get, right now we're kind of shortchanging what we're getting from Middleton, right? We've only seen him play 15 to 20 minutes a game. He's hit that 21 mark maybe 2 or 3 times. But, you think about another 10, 15 minutes of Middleton in some of these lull stretches where he can really go to work. I think that's going to be a huge difference maker once we see Middleton at his full capacity of minutes. Defensively, he's looked better. Last year, I did not like what I saw from Middleton defensively. I think from the eye test, he does look better defensively this year, and a little bit more aggressive and able to move quite a bit better. So that's, I think, a good sign. But getting another 10 to 15 minutes out of Middleton is such a huge deal, especially in these games where the last 2, like, we haven't had Damian Lillard. So Middleton being out there is like such a huge piece of the puzzle that we just haven't seen yet. But he could be that guy who leads the team in assists, depending on how things go. I'd like to see how that works out and how the rotations go when we do have the full complement of players, the full amount of Chris Middleton minutes to go in, where we're getting 35 from Middleton, 35 from Giannis, 35 from Dame, and really see what happens then. But I mean, the Bucks could have 3 guys averaging 6+ assists, potentially, maybe even more. I'm interested to see who ends up being the assist leader when it's all said and done, because We just haven't been able to see this with Chris being kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit in terms of the minutes restriction. Do you guys want to talk about the in-season tournament? I was skeptical, I guess, coming in, but even if it sucked, my thing was that at least the NBA, unlike a lot of other leagues, they're trying new things. They're trying something different. You have 82 games. Why not try something cool like this? If you make it to the championship of the in-season tournament, it really only adds 1 game to your season. I've found that the players, the effort has been there. There was an interview, I think, with Damian Lillard a week or two beforehand, and he found out that even the two-way players get, what is it, like $500,000 like per player. Like, that's a big deal for some of these guys on two ways.
Yeah.
Like, and that's going to add a lot of effort for. I love that Damian Lillard heard that, and that increased their effort and excitement. Like, oh, I can get my boys $500,000 like for just playing ball. Like, I love the idea of it. The courts, I think, have been ugly, but I love the idea. I like that they're trying different stuff. I think that it didn't go. I think the execution was poor, but I love the idea of changing out the courts, different jerseys, doing something. The in-season tournament, I think overall, like the effort that I saw in the games, like the one game we saw, Bucks and Knicks, like that was a really fun Friday night game. That was a lot of fun to watch. Some of these other ones too. I think this is really cool. I hope this sticks. I hope other people are enjoying it as well. And like I said, skeptical at first, but really enjoyed the effort that I saw. It felt like it mattered more than anything that we see up until Christmas Day. Is, a lot of people say that's when the NBA season starts. And so I just felt like the effort and everything was there. I'm really enjoying it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, there was a situation with the Kings where Kevin Huerter didn't throw up an actual shot near the end of the game.
Oh,
and because the point differential matters, one of his teammates was like yelling at him, like, "What? Skip it up!"
Sabonis, I think, pushed him. I think
Yeah.
Sabonis like got mad at him, like, "Hey, you take that shot even though we're up because point differential matters." So that comes into play for a tiebreaker.
Yep.
See the awareness of little stuff like that. I like, that's good gamesmanship. I love that. I love that you're thinking about strategy. I love you're thinking like not just win this one, but win the tournament. These little things help us. I love that.
Yeah, most of these games that are in group play, they're played on a Friday night, a Saturday night, a Sunday, and that's the big thing too. When these Bucks fans, when they travel to, what are the road games for group play? Charlotte and Miami. It's like, you're going to go to Charlotte and you're going to see your bunch of players rest. I don't think so. That's not the case anymore. These games actually matter when it comes to this in-season tournament.
Yeah, I wish there was more meaning for fans beyond the fact that the games are more competitive, but that's ultimately what we want, is more meaningful regular season games, and this is resulting in that. So from that perspective, I can't really knock it. And the courts, they're fun. I mean, they're ridiculous, and sometimes it's hard to see the dang players because the jerseys are almost blended in with the really dark colors that they're putting on some of these courts. But I would actually almost have preferred that, like, if you're gonna get weird, get like really weird, Like, there was a bunch of designs on the Mexico City game court, and I loved that. Yeah.
Cool.
But I wanted it to be like more vibrant, not just the outline design that they had. I'm like, I'll throw a bunch of colors on there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sorry, I want every court to be like a Spurs Fiesta kind of feel.
I love it. Why not? Like, that's why we have multiple courts, to have fun, not just to like, hey, we're matching this throwback or we're doing this thing for this city edition jersey or whatever. Like, go all out, make it really weird. And if it sucks, like, we'll laugh about it, but it'll be talked about. And next year you make some tweaks. But overall, in-season tournaments, I like what you said too, like players not resting, putting games in marquee situations, weekend games, more eyes on the product. I think this is really cool. Like, I'm very excited for the next one. I love what we saw that night. Bucks and Knicks, like that was super cool. And the Bucks, like, it made it feel like a big game, as was the very first game against the Sixers, and the Bucks won it. Same thing. The Bucks played against the Heat, like that's a big game. That's who they lost to in gentleman's sweep in the playoffs. Like, that was a big game. So to me, as we do an overall look of the Bucks season too, like, they seem to be winning these big games, right? Like, for the game, like the bigger situations, the marquee games against your tougher Eastern Conference opponents, like they're winning those games. That's great. I think what a lot of Bucks fans and the chaos and panic that I'm seeing on Twitter from some of these losses is like the NBA.
They can't win on the road. Is that it?
Well, that's part of it. But I also think like the NBA, like the last few years, I think teams have gotten better at tanking and making it a short rebuild, because some of these teams that have been bad, like they've done a good job. There's so many teams, like good young teams, or even the teams that aren't very good, they have a lot of good pieces in place. Like look at the Thunder, the Spurs, the Blazers, the Magic. Like a lot of these teams, I'm missing a couple, but the Rockets is another one. These teams that, were not good for like the last few years or did a quick like retool, but they have good young players in a lot of different positions. The Magic, if I didn't mention them, where you look at their roster and you're like, man, these teams, like they're really starting to turn around. They have, in a lot of cases, they have their centerpiece and they have a lot of really good role players and young, first and second year players that you're really excited about, third year players in some cases. Like, I think there's some really fun rosters right now. And
the Pacers were favored for Thursday's game, and the Pacers are really good. Like
Pacers are awesome.
Tyrese Halliburton's an all-star.
MVP candidate right now.
Miles Turner is one of the best defensive centers in the league, protecting the rim, and he helps stretch. He's Brook Lopez, y'all. Except he's
it's switchable.
Four, like what, 8 years younger or something ridiculous.
Yeah, Benedict Mathurin he's kind of sneaky too when it comes to scoring.
Awesome.
Mathurin's like Corey Maggette with with maybe more upside. Like he's really good.
And his mental of like, he's going to go out there and just be a killer. Like I like Mathurin's intensity and like, I like his game. Like last year after he got drafted, he's like, LeBron has to choose to me that he's the best. I don't know. Like that's awesome.
Oh no, that's I don't know. Some of those delusional things like that'll turn me off a little bit. Like I like the hyperbole. Like you should think of yourself highly, my friend. Definitely. Like you have to believe it to achieve it. So you go, Benedict Mathurin.
That's funny. It's funny that you say the Pacers were favored. So it was a home game for the Pacers. Dame Lillard was out, and then it was also the back-to-back for the Bucks. So that's interesting. I didn't know that the Pacers were favored, but there's a lot of factors going into that. But Pacers, they're a top 4 team in the East right now, and they're going to be solid. They're going to be solid.
They got Bruce Brown,
Obi Toppin and Bruce Brown,
who just won a championship with the Nuggets, and he's in their starting lineup as a key part of their defensive game plan. Obi Toppin is, I don't know why the hell they're even going with that whole experiment with him starting, but like the Pacers have other good guys off the bench. Andrew Nembhard's a good player, probably a name you've never heard, or it's a lot of casual fans won't know of, because again, these are Indiana Pacers like backup guys, but like they're legit dudes. They have Aaron Nesmith has good size, goes out there and puts up really nice statistics from game to game. He can look really bad on occasion, but Aaron Nesmith's a good guy. Jarris Walker that they got coming off the bench, Jalen Smith coming off the bench has been playing great for them as a backup center this season. So like the Pacers are a good team. And then the Magic too, like these last 2 losses were 2 good teams. Yeah. It's not the Indiana Pacers. The Indiana Pacers were in contention for a playoff spot or the play-in bid last year, and they just punted on that to end the season. They just like stopped playing dudes, started putting their best player or put like Buddy Hield on the bench. And some of that was to look at their young guys, but it's like they were in position to be in the play-in, and they just whoop. So this Pacers team's good as long as they're healthy. And Orlando, Paolo Banchero was the first overall pick last year, and didn't he win Rookie of the Year? Like,
he's awesome. He's
really good. Franz Wagner was just on Germany's FIBA World Cup winning team, gold medal. They beat everybody. Like, Anthony and he was the dude.
Good. Like, yeah.
The Orlando Magic are really good.
I'm telling you, there's a number of really good young teams who have pieces across the board, like into their bench, where you're just like, man, some of these teams are starting to figure out. And it's really exciting. Like some of these teams that you're like, oh, there's a bunch of teams tanking. Like, no, there's actually a bunch of really good young teams. Tyrese Halliburton, this is his 4th year. Last year was the first player ever in NBA history. 20 points, 10 assists per game while shooting 40% from 3. And he's from where, Terrell?
Oshkosh.
Boom, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Gotta love it. God, he's the man. He's outside of the Milwaukee Bucks, Tyrese Halliburton, maybe my favorite player in the NBA outside of Bucks players, but rooting so hard for him. Obviously, a Wisconsin kid.
Man, so many teams benefiting from the wealth of Wisconsin basketball. I mean, Jalen Smith now starting for the Atlanta Hawks, who are doing better this year.
Jalen Johnson, yeah.
What I call him?
Jalen Smith, because we were just talking about Jalen Smith.
Yeah, Jalen Johnson.
Jalen Johnson looks great. I love, man. Quinn Snyder is they're going to be a fun team. I've never disliked like the Hawks roster in the last handful of years. It feels like they maybe got ahead of themselves, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Bucks in 2021. I don't know. The last couple of years, they just like I don't know if that got to them or the just like the stakes were too high or whatever, but. I like the coach that they have in place with Quinn Snyder. I like that Jalen Johnson is getting some run. I like some of the pieces that they have too. They can be a fun team to watch. But yeah, I mean, Hawks are in the 4 spot right now. Pacers in the 3 spot. Then you got Sixers and Celtics. Bucks in the 7 spot right now at 5-4. But the 3 teams ahead of them are also 5-4. So
yeah, looking at the Eastern Conference here, we're about 9 games into the season, and the way it's shaken out. There are some surprises here. Like I thought for sure the Cavaliers would not be sitting at 4-5. Same with the Bucks. We thought the Bucks at this point would probably be like 7-2. Instead, they're sitting here at 5-4. Even the Knicks. The Knicks are that they just seem like kind of disappointing right now.
Are they a blow it up candidate? Are they a team that you could see them blowing it up like in season?
Wow. I don't understand how that would happen though, because they have Brunson, they have Julius Randle, so they're building around those 2 pieces, and it's yeah.
I mean, I don't look. The Knicks were pretty decent last year; they're good, and but ultimately, you look at their roster and you're not excited about their future.
No, I don't. There's times I like Randall, or I did previously, but God, he just looks.
He's coming off off-season ankle surgery. Okay. So Julius Randle, yeah, he even actually came out the other day and said, if people thought that I was going to start the season being old Julius Randle, like at my peak physical form after undergoing ankle surgery 4 months ago, like that's just naive. So. And yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and that's kind of what we're looking at with this Bucks situation. We'll have some good tests coming up. The fact that they're playing Chicago, a team that is reeling right now, on Monday, that's a really good way to kind of, get back on track after a couple of losses here. And then Toronto on Wednesday, that'll be a good test. The first game against Toronto was also at Toronto. So this will be a really good indication of, is Griffin looking at his situation and making adjustments? Or is it as simple as the fact that him relying more on Brook Lopez, which he did there for a few games, but then he still is not showing like a complete commitment and understanding of how important Lopez is out there. Like it just takes such a weight off of Giannis to have him back there protecting the rim. Then it's not all on Giannis to be trying to defend everybody who's going to the rack. And you gotta be reasonable about how much you're expecting Giannis to do with his offensive game being, hard charging and like body contact going to the rim all the time. You can't also then ask him to be over there exhausting so much energy, jumping around the rim, swatting at stuff. Like you got to have help out there with him. That's why you need either Middleton healthy, because before they had Drew Holiday, they had Chris Middleton as like the main, another great defensive option out there on the wing. Like you're either going to have to find a way to integrate Crowder more in that respect, or maybe Bobby Portis steps up in a bigger lineup as we go. But there does have to be more help for Giannis on defense, even as we are enjoying him taking on some of those bigger assignments. You can't put him in position where he's out there just like desperately trying to hold everything together because you're not surrounding him with the right things, Adrian Griffin. Thanks for letting me talk about all that.
Uh-oh. It looks like Anthony went mute on us.
What?
Oh, sorry. Here I am.
Wow, you didn't want to listen to it.
Gotta press the button.
Wow,
Gotta press the button.
You muted me. That wasn't even. You didn't
have
mute your
my
mic. You muted me. That's really
I didn't
mean.
mute you. I didn't have my mic on. Thank you. I was being respectful and sipping my coffee, slurping. Really, just.
Really you guys should hear him drink coffee. It's like he's got a bowl of soup over there, and he didn't have a spoon.
Yeah, thanks. I like that the Bucks are winning close games outside of the Pacers game. They're close games, they're winning, and that was a bummer to see Giannis get 54 with more than 5 minutes to play Thursday night against the Pacers. So he set the record for most points in a road game for the Bucks. 57 Michael Redd did against the Jazz in around 2006, 2007. And we've seen, I want to say Giannis has had 55 maybe twice. Brandon Jennings had 55 in like his 6th career game. But he was so close. Giannis, and it's funny, earlier that day I was talking with someone like Dame Lillard, like the record's 57. Dame has put up 60 in a game before. Like Damian Lillard is a candidate to set the single game record for points in a game. And he could probably do it in regulation, not with ease, but in a game he hits 9 or 10 threes. Like it's not out of the question. He's hit 60 plus before, I believe. And so it was funny. Like I was talking about that with someone on Thursday, and then of course we're in the situation in the 4th quarter, and Giannis is like approaching 50 with ease with a ton of time left, and then goes scoreless the last 5 minutes. The Pacers,
he was trying for that.
Credit. He was trying for it, but the Pacers were throwing everything at him. Double teams, triple teams, anything they could throw at him. And he put the ball on the floor. He was seeing guy after guy, and the Bucks couldn't quite hit their shots when Giannis would pass it out. And Giannis wanted it so bad because he was 3 points away from tying the record, 4 points away from taking it over, and just could not get a bucket in the last 5 minutes. You're like, oh, he was set up perfectly for it. Even if he got 58, like 60 is great, but 58 would have at least set the record, but so close. And he still set the record for points in a road game for the Bucks, but man, it was right there. And then to have the Bucks lose too, it was a very fun game to watch, but sad that it ended in that way with the Bucks loss and Giannis not quite getting that record on Thursday night. Last Monday, I believe it was, though, fun to see them against the Nets. That Nets team is also a team with a lot of different pieces in different areas. I hope that this is the Ben Simmons revival season. It was great. It was fun to see him and Giannis get back at it, because they have a good little rivalry. And if you remember a few years back, Giannis taking Simmons in the post, and they're similar size. And Giannis, saying he's an effing baby. After scoring on him. And I mean, right away in the game, he was going right at him. But I like Ben Simmons that he's back. His effort is there. Like, I really hope that this is like his redemption year. Obviously Giannis wins that matchup. Kyle, you're saying?
I don't know. He's dealing with like an injury right now, and he's missed now, I think 2 or 3 games. So.
Probably since that Bucks game. Okay.
Yep. Because he's a maybe. And Giannis destroyed him again.
Yeah,
that's what we'll blame it on. Blame it on Giannis.
The Bucks seem to be giving up some of these big performances for scoring. Like we saw, was it Sasser for the Pistons, who's looked really good. Cam Thomas again in that Nets game. We're seeing perimeter players put up some really good numbers against this Bucks team, and I think it has to do with maybe how the Bucks are defensive scheme and having Beasley out there a lot. Last night was a lot of fun. I liked seeing that we saw some good young lineups. Like the last couple games, we've seen AJJ play with MarJon with and without Giannis. We saw them try AJ Green a little bit last night, and he looked good for his a few stints. We saw Livingston really for the first time in any meaningful minutes last night. But AJJ's continued increase in role. You look at the box score, it's not going to look good. It's going to be like 3 minutes, 3 fouls, or 10 minutes and 4 fouls and maybe a steal and a couple rebounds. But he is absolutely making an impact. He's making a difference. And to see what he's doing and like just the way he can absolutely fly around on defense and offensive rebounding too, like to me, he looks really good. I think if he can settle down the fouling, or sometimes players come into the league and you're so aggressive on defense, it actually takes times for referees to be like, oh, he's not out of control. He's just like, a defensive kind of, like that's his thing. He's just going to give max effort and be all over the place. And sometimes referees get kind of whistle happy and will call those guys on a lot of fouls early in their career. But as time goes on and you get that reputation, I think referees are more likely to maybe stand down a little bit with the whistle. And I think that's only going to help Andre Jackson Jr. Kind of get, hopefully up to 15 minutes a game. I'd love to see more, because what he can add to this team with his defense and energy is a big deal. This is what I've been hoping for him, really since we got him, but even seeing him more on the floor. My hope is that he can be what we all thought Michael Carter Williams was, in his first few seasons. Similar size, 6'6", 6'7", lengthy, has some ball skills, not a great shot, but can do everything else. I see a lot of similarities, and I really hope that AJJ can become what we thought Michael Carter Williams was when he was that Rookie of the Year for the Sixers, or even his first year with the Bucks when they went with the all-length lineup. But what are you guys thinking on him?
Last night for Ajax, that was a huge step in the right direction. I mean, you're talking about a guy who is coming off the bench, and he needs to somehow spark the defense. This game yesterday, this will get him minutes into next week for sure. You're talking about a guy that played 14 minutes. He went 2 of 3 shooting, but the stuff that's not in the stat line, what he did on defense, the hustling. At one point, I think Lisa Byington goes, Ajax, he's everywhere on the court. And yeah, it showed yesterday. Yeah, I know it's the Magic game where a lot of starters did not play for the Bucks, but when your time comes, Ajax, he wants to be out there. I think if you get him in the right rotation, he can actually uplift the offense and also continue his defense.
Adrian Griffin seems dedicated. Go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, no. They should have had him in more of a ball handling role yesterday. The fact that MarJon Beauchamp was bringing the ball up several possessions, and then I mean, he's not going to do anything with it. He's just bringing the ball up, and that didn't have any dynamic use really, other than to give a little bit of a break to Giannis from bringing the ball up, which Kyle, give it to Andre Jackson then, so he can do something with it.
Well, to your point, Kyle, in a game without Damian Lillard, Andre Jackson Jr., who did handle the ball quite a bit for UConn, that seemed like it would have been a good situation for him to get a little bit more used to that. It seems like they're bringing him off ball more, but hopefully, that changes and we do get to see him. The Jay Crowder groin injury I think that opens up more time for AJJ more so than anyone else. It seems like Adrian Griffin is pretty dedicated to getting MarJon consistent minutes. I think he's got to be 10 to 15 minutes. It seems like he's in at similar times. He starts the second quarter a couple times, like last night. We've seen him even come in the first quarter. But I think that AJJ probably is the biggest minutes beneficiary from Jay Crowder's the groin injury. We at this point don't know how long that'll keep him out. And the next few games against not great teams.
Yeah, with Jay Crowder, they list him at a power forward, and Ajax is listed here as a guard. But you look at the size of Ajax, he's 6'6", 210. So can he possibly be put into the forward position? Absolutely. I think the more I think about it, this injury to Jay Crowder, it does open the door for Ajax. I think we will see him more often.
Yeah, I think he's a multi-position defender. He can handle the ball. He's really just all energy all the time. And if he can play in control, and like I said, the referees get used to him a little bit, he gets a little less handsy. He makes things happen. He brings energy, and that's a huge deal to have somebody like that, especially coming off the bench. God, we even saw Thanasis last night in a time where Coach Griffin was just looking for energy. But I love that energy lineup when you had God, there was times we saw Marjan, we saw AJJ with Thanasis, throw Marjan in there. AJ Green was, looking for the spark on offense. We saw Giannis with that lineup. There was some fun stuff that I'm interested to see how that goes. The next 3 games aren't against great teams, right? We got Bulls at the Raptors, and then the in-season tournament game 2 on Friday night against the Hornets. There's an opportunity for some of these young guys to really put their stamp on this team, especially if there is some injuries. Malik Beasley's time has been trending down. We haven't seen him come back into games as often as we did that first week or so. But there's something, there's a role to carve out for Andre Jackson Jr. for sure.
Bucks really don't run much pick and roll, do they?
Not enough. And that's a lot of people are saying, why aren't they spamming the Lillard Giannis like over and over? I think they're saving it for later in the season,
and Lillard Brook, Giannis Brook, like
yes,
Chris Middleton Brook, like
yes.
Brook and Lillard in anything, and just any of those 4 guys in anything, and then spread them out.
Lillard's never really had someone, even as like we talk about Lillard and Giannis, and they haven't had a player like each other, and Lillard hasn't even had a player like Brook Lopez to screen and roll with. Like there's, and we really haven't seen that very much at all. But yeah, I would like to see more action with that. I think we're hopefully see more horns action. I wonder.
Make teams choose, like put teams on their heels, make them choose between Lillard going to the rack, who's great at drawing fouls, and him throwing it up to Brook Lopez on that pick and roll, like just as they both roll together, like just, oh my gosh, there's so many easy ways to score for this team. So then it's really, Griffin, look, there are, maybe it feels like there's missing pieces, but ultimately if they've got everything they need, it just needs to be put together in the right way. And a lot of the issues can get solved just by them being healthier with Lillard and Middleton, hopefully going forward.
This team is going to figure out. It is a first-time head coach, but I trust that he is going to figure it out. A lot of great teams, like the first time the Heat got together with LeBron and Bosh and everything, like they weren't that great for the first 20 games, probably. Like there's other situations like this where it didn't all come together. You add in Chris's minute restrictions, Lillard getting hurt, the situation where Stotts leaves the team. Like there's just been some weird stuff with this team so far, but there's no doubt in my mind that it's not a time to panic. They're going to figure it out. They're too good to figure it out. And like you said, Kyle, earlier, a healthy Giannis and a healthy Lillard, healthy starting 5, really, like this team is going to be a top 4 team in the East and be a title contender, regardless if they are the 4th team going into the playoffs. Like,
well, and if we look, if we really did the matchup game still with the Sixers, with the Celtics, to try to just kind of gauge and see, like, okay, how realistic is the Bucks' chance to win the championship? Like, it's still there. There's no reason to really get worked up about it. I think all of us are used to watching the Bucks at a certain level over the last several years, that to see them struggle in any way right now feels like a step back, when in reality, we know ultimately that Lillard was out these last 2 losses. And if he's in the mix, they may very well have been 2 wins. So it's just like, we need to be patient in many regards. The problem, I think, that you feel looking at the roster is like there's not many other moves that could be made from the Bucks to help solidify them in a better position in any way, unless you could flip Bobby Portis to a team that wants him to start and is willing to send you somebody who's, a Grayson Allen level guy. But again, you don't even want to necessarily go back to that kind of a level. You want to, even though that's probably what they need, is a Grayson Allen kind of guy, somebody who's better on defense than Beasley, but can still hit that 3-point shot. Yeah,
a guy that came to mind right away was Quentin Grimes, going after him, a guy like that.
Oh, yeah.
Just put him in the corner and let him shoot. So,
can AJ Green be that guy? I know there's defensive questions certainly, but okay, Terrell, you're making faces. There's times where I've seen him defensively where I am like, he's not as bad as he gets a rap for, and he can be instant offense. I think consistency is the thing for him, but right now he's on the outside looking in. I think he's last night was his really only meaningful minutes, other than maybe one other game. Other than that, it's been all garbage time.
To me, it's Portis. I know I've been banging on this since we've started talking about the Bucks, man. And it's just play a bigger lineup. Play Portis at power forward. Play Chris Middleton at shooting guard. Like that's boom, dude. It's over. If they're healthy and you've got those guys, those 4 dudes with Lillard at, I'm just saying, man, like that's because Portis, I think he also can get motivated more by playing next to and within, like next to those guys. He'll be more motivated to like he'll raise his level. It's weird. There's a lot of like psychological stuff with Bobby Portis. Sometimes it feels like and put him around those guys. I almost feel like you'll be watching him a lot of times. You're like, is Bobby Portis an all-star? Which I don't know. I don't know if I've ever said that.
And sometimes we only see him play, 17, in the neighborhood of 15 minutes a game. And I don't know. I wonder how this all shakes out. And
he's not just a backup. Really he's not just a backup center, especially on a roster where you're already using the flexibility of having Giannis as not. I mean, they're using Giannis like Jokic in some respects, especially with Lillard out the last couple games, where he'd be playing center on defense, but then being the point guard on offense. And you're just like, it's almost too much.
Well, fellas, this has been really great. I think it's time we probably wrap it up. I think we've got all our thoughts and feelings out there, Kyle, unless you got something else.
Mm-mm.
All right. Well, we'll probably be back at it this Saturday. We got a handful of games to check out. 3 games this week. You got the Bulls on Monday night. You have at the Raptors on Wednesday, and then game 2 for the Bucks in the NBA in-season tournament Friday night against the Hornets. So 3 very winnable games against Eastern Conference opponents. Nothing super tough there, but
that Dallas game that's a trappy game then.
Yeah,
I mean, it was already going to be a hard game on the back-to-back against Dallas, but then you also have the team. The Bucks might have been looking at Charlotte and being like, we're going to rest somebody. We're going to kind of mail it in a little bit. Hopefully it's a blowout. Beat the crap out of Charlotte. That way you get a little bit of rest in the fourth quarter for all your big dudes, and then you can still play them in a meaningful way on Saturday.
Yes. Yeah. So that's another thing to come up is that Mavericks game is the next. Certainly the in-season tournament I have my eye on, but Saturday night against the Mavericks could be, depending on who's healthy, depending on who plays. It is a back-to-back, but that is going to be a lot of fun too. So who knows? Maybe we'll wait till Sunday and give you guys some more beyond that. But stay tuned. Check us out. Thank you so much for listening to us, watching us, viewing. Please like, rate, review, comment. All your feedback is extremely helpful. We appreciate you guys so much. And for Kyle and Terrell, I am Anthony. We will catch you next time. Thanks for checking us out.